Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the rib, the day before the election. And we have a guest, I believe, today.
Yes, we do. It's so nice to welcome somebody we speak about an awful lot on our show, Michelle Dion. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Hi, CJ. Hi, Chip. How are you?
How you doing,
I'm
Counselor?
good.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you because we always talk about the fact that you always stand up for the people, and we don't have to ask you a lot of questions. As far as I'm concerned, you can just say if you can take it away a little bit, and we can kind of have just a nice relaxing conversation.
And any questions that come from the viewers will pop up on the screen. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No. I hope people do ask questions.
So
first, I want to explain that I really thought a lot today about what am I going to wear on this show. Should I lean towards the formal side like city council? Nah. Maybe a dress down day because it was such a lousy rainy day. But then I decided I was going to go with smart casual. What do you think?
There you go. Hey,
nice. There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
I like it.
There'd be something different, right?
That's a recycled T-shirt, isn't it? You've had that around for a long time.
I've had this shirt for approximately 9 years now.
I was going to say. And you're still fit in it. Isn't that great?
Yep, that is a good thing. Except it was looser then, but yes, I still fit.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
do you have an opening statement for our viewers?
Well, I think that at this point, people who follow city council, people who follow politics, basically should know who I am, what I stand for. And yes, I've always tried to fight for the people. I've always tried to do what's best for the city and the people. You can't always accomplish your goals, but that doesn't mean you stop trying. And hopefully they're going to vote for me tomorrow and give me 2 more years at it. We still have a long way to go. I believe that, we can change the course of things. Again, depending on who gets elected to the council moving forward, who the administration is. But like always, we'll get through it and we'll survive.
Well, the thing that people don't seem to understand, because they turn around and they say you're a naysayer, you're negative, you don't have anything positive to say, and your votes reflect. They don't say that your votes reflect the voters' needs or the voters' wants. They always say you're just a naysayer. They don't understand. You're 1 of 9 votes. 1 of 9.
Yeah, that's correct. You can't. The only person that can do, well, and even that, not always. I was going to say unilaterally is actually the mayor of the city, but even sometimes they can't because they need the approval of the city council. No, thank you, Stevie. I appreciate that very much. But however, you're absolutely right. You can't, as one counselor, no matter how hard you try, you can't change anything. You have to have support. You have to have a majority. I'm looking at the comments as we're speaking here.
we do have
This
a
is from
question.
Gene St. Pierre. He says, "Hi, Michelle. The one question I have is we have a lot of dispensaries. How in the city, and they pay an awful lot of tax. Where is all that money going? Originally, they had said something to the police, some to prevention, some to outreach, and obviously something to the budget. But we never hear anything about the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where is it?"
Well, that's true, but that's true for a lot of the money that the city takes in. So basically, everything goes into the city budget. Everything goes into the general fund, and then it's expended from there um, for different line items. So you're not necessarily going to see something that says, "Okay, this line item is say, $100,000, and it comes from the dispensaries." That's not how it's going to be listed. Just like, we get money from revenues from traffic, we get revenues from the city clerk's office. So when you look at the budget, it doesn't state in a line item, well, these revenues were generated by. It's not that specific. Perhaps we should do better at that. Maybe the fact that the dispensaries were put forward as a generator for specific items. Maybe moving forward, we should try to change it. But again, that's something the city council can't decide what the line items are. They can't decide how the budget's put together. We can say if we don't like it, we cannot support it. But we don't put the budget together.
Well, I think that's a pretty good answer, but I think it brings up something that I think a lot of people, because people, the naysay bit doesn't bother me, because the politics in this city is anybody who wants to do something that the people who are running the city into the ground they're considered negative and naysayers and everything else. The general consensus I have from the people I talk to is that you stand up for what you do. People should know that. But that brings up another question that has always bothered me, and we talk about it a lot. Is this administration above all of them, and I've been through a lot of it. I have never seen an administration that will not divulge any basic information, even when the council asks for it, like the number of lawsuits, how much we have in lawsuits, what's going on. It's very difficult to do your job, and I'm hoping that you get some help. So it's kind of a question and a statement, that we get some help and have the council if this administration gets in again, which is my worst nightmare. Well, I'm gonna be perfectly frank. You know me. I'm always, and but I would like to see the council sue the administration for the information. And I see Dan, put it up there. There should be some kind of. There's nothing. A city budget's a smoke and mirrors. That's the problem. They squirrel money away. They inflate budgets and things like that. If we had a budget like Newton, which is very, very clear and concise, it would be a difference. But Michelle, I know you are one of the people who ask the questions. You do a lot of homework. You have a lot of numbers, and then we get virtually the answer that we're not going to tell you. That's, I think, a lot of people are extremely disturbed. And now, when we're looking down the barrel of another 2 years of this guy who's done nothing but double the budget, we're looking at. We still haven't gotten really definitive answers on Diamond and how that's going to affect everything overall. We still haven't got definitive answers on anything, and I know they're just trying to kill time till after the election. But how do you see trying to get numbers for the people? I know you tried, and I'm not saying, and I know it's not your fault, because it's the council as a whole that has to demand these things as fiduciaries. But how do you see that? If with all the stuff we're facing, and through the rumor mill, we've heard he's already offered a union that endorsed him a 5, 5, and 5 contract. So we know the financial condition we're in. And when you start handing out more money on top of what we've got, and then the citizens are looking at who knows what we've got, and it's hard to really understand where we can go when, let's face it, Dad, you can't. Yeah, you're right, a real budget, but this isn't a real budget.
But I mean, we do have in the budget that shows expenditures and revenues.
Yeah.
And and it'll tell you how much we received from the excise for marijuana. I know this past year the number came in higher than anticipated. I'm thinking off the top of my head, I hate to do that, but it was around $1.5 million. But they don't specifically say how those dollars are spent. So yes, does the budget show the revenues and where the revenues come from? Yes. Does the budget show expenditures and where expenditures are paid out? Yes. But in those expenditures, it doesn't say, oh, this portion is paid from this revenue. Maybe that's a better way of explaining it. I think so. People need to understand, and I said this in a forum. Whenever we have free cash at the end of the year, free cash goes to the state. They certify it. It goes into the stabilization account. But what free cash is revenues that weren't expended. So last year there was $15 million in free cash. Well, what that translates into is over taxation. So now it goes into a stabilization account. Is it great to have a stabilization account? Sure. Just like having a savings account for yourself. However, the budget, in my opinion, should be a lot tighter than that. I've tried in the past they have funded positions that are vacant. I've tried in the past to cut the number of those down. You cut the number of those down, you're going to cut your budget down. But you have to get the support. You have to have 5 people agree. We can dispose, but I can't dispose by myself.
And that's the thing. You want to cut the budget here, you want to cut the budget there, but when you make the motion and nobody seconds it, you're out there, with your flag going, I'm over here, and nobody's paying attention to you. And Gene, there is nothing in the law or in the cannabis control law that says the money must be allocated to specific programs. Those promises were made by previous administrations, not this one. And I understand you want the money to go to addiction and this and that, but the money was meant to go to the cities and towns to offset their costs, to offset their budget, not to provide more services.
Yeah, and the I see Gene saying that the stabilization account gets used for pet projects. I can't agree with that in the respect of that. This past budget, and Chip, you know it well, we were short in the healthcare account. Well, where did the money come from? Where did we transfer money from to bring that account to where it was supposed to be? It came from the stabilization account. So you can't just simply say it's pet projects, because it's not. When we're short on net school spending, where does the money come from? Stabilization account. And we have to, and there are certain things we have to fund. And when you have to fund them, you have to take the money from those areas, which is why you need a stabilization account. However, do I always think that the money is used as wisely as it should be? No. Do I believe we should have had the shortage we had? No. But again, we're on the end of it. We're on, and we can only do what we can do when it gets to us. We don't create the problem. We can't solve the problem. The only thing we can do is dig our heels in and say, no, we want more efficiency. We want more accountability. But sorry, my dogs are acting up.
That's okay. Mine is too. So
that's what happens when you have 3 of them. Yeah. So, if you can't, and that's the thing people say, if you can't count to 5, you can't accomplish anything, because you need 5.
yeah, I've got to interject here because we're talking a lot about the budget. So let me make this perfectly clear. No one knows this better than I do, because I have a I have a court stenographer's report from this city when we did a forensic audit that fundamentally proves this city and its budget and all the numbers in it are purely fictitious. We see $2 million short in healthcare when that was supposedly fully funded. We see contracts that were supposedly fully funded by law, by statute, and I can name all the statutes. They have to be funded when they go before the council. And we've heard the administration say they're looking at investments down the road, but they are funded when they are not. If this city has a forensic audit, we may find out we're in receivership. Let's make this perfectly clear. With $3 million in the hole for trash, with $2 million in the hole for healthcare, I have a forensic audit where our financial team at the time, who was a lot better than a financial team we have today, admitted freely under oath that a lot of these numbers, as far as you talked about, you talked about money from excise taxes, et cetera, et cetera. I'll give you something that a lot of people don't know. All those numbers are fictitious too. It's just like when we're looking for a bond rating. When we're looking for a bond rating, all of a sudden everything's great in the city so they can get a good bond rating. When you go to arbitration, they say we're broke. And this is the problem. Therein lies the problem. When I went to the JLMC for my contract negotiation, I had to prove the ability to pay in this city. And part of what I did to prove the city's ability to pay was I took all their projected income and I compared what they projected and what we actually got. Excise tax was a great example. In a year they wanted to show they were broke, they underestimated what we got. In a year they wanted to look flush, they overestimated what we got, and I did it for 7 years back. All these numbers, this is the reason I say there's no way around it. We need a full forensic audit, not by a government official, the treasurer who's a political person. We need somebody like we brought in, Ernst & Young, to do an audit. We will find out this city's in a lot of trouble. And it's not your fault, Michelle. I want to make that perfectly clear. You have to deal with the numbers that you're given. And we've heard you question those numbers on many occasions and be correct. And this is the problem we have. You're sitting in that chamber doing your homework, and you have to call these people out, and we find out that your numbers are correct, and you don't have anywhere near the access to what the total picture is as the people who are supposed to be there projecting the numbers. I think the bottom line of that was the fact that you're doing a good job, but you're doing it with the executive branch of this city ignoring its obligation to give you correct numbers. You know, and it is a problem. And I don't think I have. I'm not. This is rhetorical to you because I know you understand that. But you know that the numbers that go in there. I'm telling you, this city hasn't been close. I think the last time I was ever confident about what was presented to a council, I think Jim Smith was the city administrator. And ever since then, it's been an unmitigated disaster. This is the problem. You're sitting in that council and you have to spend your valuable time, and we appreciate that. And a lot of time, you correct a lot, you expose a lot. But again, as you said, we got to get to 5. That's what makes this election so important. You have to go out there and vote for people like you who are doing it. We can't have a bunch of head nodders there that are going to just go, okay, and kick the can down the road. And that can is already out of gas. I think that another 2 years with pay raises and diamond and everything else, I see people fleeing out of this city all the time. I see houses up for sale all over the city from people who've lived here for a long time, and they just can't deal with it anymore. So, but I mean, the numbers, to sit here and talk about that budget like it's a real thing, it isn't. When I sent that letter to Coogan, before he took office, I said that the budget isn't a real thing, and I showed them all the numbers, and they ignored it. And what happened in that little thing I sent him 6 years ago? I said you'd be broke and wouldn't be able to pay your share of the health care, and here we are. But I mean, I understand it, and I commend you on your ability to do this without beating yourself up with a hammer every time you're in that council chamber. So with that, I prefer it. But the budget is just something. If you don't get good numbers, you can't. You just can't. All you're doing is trying to do the best you can. But I don't know how you guys can function in it, because these numbers are not right. When you have to call in other people, you have to call in Gallagher about the healthcare numbers because you're not sure about those, or the person we're paying to give you the numbers gives you these are just for discussion purposes. It's crazy. It's crazy. But go ahead.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And you're right. And even when you have the specifics and you question it, there's an aversion to the answer. Is that a good way to put it?
I don't have those numbers with me, but I'll get them to you as soon as I can. No, leave the chamber and get me the goddamn numbers. That's what I would say.
The problem with that, and I know you've seen it. So we have city council meetings that there's a lot of questions and a lot of aversion to answers. And if we did that every single time, I think we'd be out of session more than in session.
But you know what? People would learn, don't come unprepared. They would learn, don't come unprepared. And if they didn't, they'll learn it the hard way. And I understand, like Linda wants to get out of there by 9 o'clock. Joe wants to get out of there by 9 o'clock. Okay? But if you're not being given the right information or any information at all, how can you make an informed decision? You can't. That's why I bang my head all the time when I watch those meetings.
Yeah, believe me, I have days I go home extremely frustrated. I truly do. I always try to be respectful. I very often will challenge them and say, listen, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. I don't have a problem with that. But we just keep going down the same path, because at the end of the day, more often than not, you can predict the vote before it happens.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you right now, Paul Hart, Brad Kilby, Linda Pereira, Amber Raposa, and Ricky Keith. There's the 5 votes. Anything the mayor wants, he gets. That may be changing a little bit, but very rarely do you hear them vote against a proposal by the mayor. And that's the problem.
Well, the council is supposed to be a checks and balances. I think this highlights how important this election is, that we have to vote for Michelle. And I think we have to send a message. I mean, look, I just saw the comment about he can't vote for the other guy, but you can't vote for Paul. I mean, in 6 years, he's run this city into the ground. You talk about fiduciary. The guy, he's admitted he was mathematically challenged. And yeah, good one, Stevie. Gabby Hayes. Okay. Yeah, the sidekick. But, I think, people have to realize, you can't have perfection in this. The only way we can control this and put a stop to this, in my opinion, is we have to exercise the power that we have as voters. If the other guy is not, if this other guy is as bad as you say he is, and you give him a term, he might be a one-term mayor. But we need people in the council. We have to. It's just as important, maybe more important, to get some new blood in that council, because as you said, I've known Paul Hart and Brad Kilby and all those guys for a long time. Brad Kilby's useless. Always has been useless, always will be useless, and so is Paul Hart. I remember Brad Kilby 10 years ago. making the people, swinging the council to vote for $1 million for an athletic field when the city was broke. That's when we had the $8 million budget, because it was always for the kids, for the kids, for the kids. How about their parents who have to pay taxes? And now that $1 million that he gave to that is under the new Durfee. We do not need, we need a sense of priorities. And the only way to get these people to pay attention, because they get reelected, they don't care. You got to start throwing new people in. And if they don't work, throw them out. If the people go out to vote, like Teddy Roosevelt said, the reason that Rome was, went and was destroyed was because the voters stopped voting and let the government run itself in Rome. And he said the voters of the Roman Republic stopped voting and Rome went down. But we have to show them that if you want to remain in that council, you have to do what Michelle does. That's advocate, do your homework, and be on the people's side. Understand about the taxpayer. Understand about what water bill increases. And this is the thing. We have to get rid of these people. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just there's no other way, because Hart and Kilby have got their north end, Tammany Hall up there, and they're gonna get their voting block. We cannot run a city when we have 50,000 people that don't vote, or 40,000 people who don't vote.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But on that note, and I'd like to address Dan on his, is there an appetite for updating the charter? Isn't it supposed to be reviewed every few years? So yes, 5 years. It was supposed to be reviewed, which it was. They did put a charter commission together to review it. However, that review was strictly to review the charter, make recommendations, and file it with the city clerk. No action was to be taken on that. No vote was going to be taken by the council other than to file it with the city clerk. And then in 2027, the 10-year review would come up, and that's when changes could be made. With that said, I think the entire conversation we're having tonight, the direction people have seen this city go in, that question on the charter, I think is why you're seeing that people may have an appetite to change our form of government. Change to a Plan E form of government with a city manager. Because if you have a city manager, that person is running the city, their entire job is financially based. Everything they're doing is from a financial point of view, and you're going to run the city more like a business. And you're going to, in my opinion, only my opinion, you're going to have more accountability. You're going to know where your money is going. Because that person, if they want to keep their job, is going to do it right.
Yeah. No, and we've been advocating that for a long time, Michelle. We agree. But the thing is, I see Dan's comment about the charter review. Of course, it fizzled. This charter. Remember, this charter that we have now. When we did the charter and got this disaster that we had, what it said on the ballot was we were going to just update the charter. It didn't say they were going to throw the charter out. Throw this charter out and make it so the politicians could everybody on that committee is fundamentally a political appointee, either by the city council or the mayor, not from the people. Of course, it wasn't going to change anything. It was going to make things worse. We need somebody to push, because this charter, and I agree, we have been advocating for this since we've been on the air. We cannot run a city and have a charter that was completely revamped, and from the day after it was passed, we've had nothing but litigation. It's a disaster. And then the way you fix the charter, and Michelle just said it, even the mechanism is BS. They reviewed it and then they just file it. No changes are going to be made. I mean, that's insane.
So I really firmly, honestly believe that the voters and the residents, it's up to them. I think they should have the ability and the opportunity to determine what direction this city is going to go in. And if they want to change the form of government, then so be it. If they choose not to change the form of government, that's okay too. But at least the decision will be made by the residents and the voters. And
Yeah, the
maybe in
problem
that,
is it's 14,000 voters. It's not 50,000 voters. It's going to be
well,
14,000 voters because people don't come out and vote.
but look at it this way. Maybe, just maybe, we talk about how many people are disgruntled, how many people are angry, how many people are upset, how many people can't afford. Well, you know what? Maybe if you give them an option that they like, that they think is a better option, maybe like back, 8 years ago, maybe they'll come out and vote again and say, yeah, you know what? We've had enough. We want to change our form of government. We don't want people who are going to campaign and get all kinds of campaign donations who now feel beholding to the people who give to their campaigns, because that won't exist anymore. A city manager, that problem, that situation will not exist.
Which is what we need. We need a government, a form of government that does not cater to the select few. We need, and I'm sorry, I mean, if I'm offending people on it that are watching, you know me. I say it like it is. We need ward counselors. We need ward counselors. And I don't want to hear, like I've heard from previous city clerks, the city council chamber isn't big enough. We only can have 9. If we have ward counselors, we'll have 9 ward counselors, and then we'll have to put in 2 or 4 counselors at large. You only need 2. Yeah, exactly. You only need 2.
You need tiebreakers. That's what you
it.
need. But the thing is that, no, you're right. But what a lot of people don't realize is, and Michelle does, I know, because she's an advocate of it, when you have a city manager, they're a lot easier to get rid of than a mayor.
That's right. The city
And
council says, bye, you're gone.
Also, a city manager has one job, to manage the city financially.
That's
and
right.
if he doesn't do that, he can't allow politics to enter into it. Because if he tanks the city like our mayor does all the time, you got to fire him. The people will then rise up and say, we got to get rid of this guy. It's like having a plumber that doesn't fix your plumbing. You're going to stop paying him. You can't do this. And this is the issue, holding them accountable. It's a tragedy that we have to change our form of government to have a government that works. But we
wouldn't be the first, and we won't be the last to do it. There are more cities in Massachusetts that have done it than I think people realize. But again, you have to have a well thought out plan, and you can't do it just from the seat of your pants. For example, Worcester has a Plan E form of government, but when they changed theirs, the city council completely gave away all their power, which is absurd. Cambridge has a Plan E charter, which I think of the ones I've seen so far is probably the best one. I think there's a good balance to it. The city council does have power. It's well defined. So the different they're out there, and people can Google it. People can, how many municipalities in Massachusetts have a Plan E form of government? It'll come up, and you can look at them, and you can see what the prerequisites are. You can see what who had the balance of power, and that's what people need to do.
No, you're right, Michelle. No, you're 100% right. Listen, people don't understand. Worcester is obviously what everybody knows, because if you read any law in the state of Massachusetts, basically, it says in any city or town except Worcester, because Worcester was the largest community, the first community to do it, and that if you look at these laws, it'll always exempt Worcester or Boston in certain civil service stuff, because The Boston departments, their civil service departments are basically carved out from the rest of the state, like the teachers. Boston Teachers Union is separated from the Mass Teachers. The Boston firefighters have a different mechanism for testing and promotions than the rest of the departments in the state. A lot of people don't know that. I happen to, because I've been in this quagmire for my entire life. But you're right. That form of government has been used by multiple areas, and you learn from what happened. As you said, you look at Worcester. Worcester didn't do it. They can't. Worcester, to me, didn't do it right. You can't abdicate the power, because the city manager, while he has an extremely important job, but he can be focused on that job, but you can't abdicate the power to somebody other than your elected councilors. He is still fundamentally an employee.
Correct.
You can't have an employee basically that can protect himself and not have any answer. He doesn't have to answer, as long as he can justify it financially to a degree. But we need people on the council who retain their fiduciary duties.
Absolutely. And you need to set the bar high enough that you're going to get a qualified person that knows the job and how to do the job. You can't just get anybody and put them in that seat. That's not going to work. And the upside to it is, if we change our form of government, we will reduce the budget by hundreds of thousands of dollars right from jump, just by eliminating positions that we aren't going to need anymore.
Like the
mayor's and now you can offer someone a good salary, a competitive salary that you're going to get qualified people to apply, and we're still going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars just from that. And I saw Dan comment before about so yes, it will require a mayor and the city council to agree through a home rule petition to send the request to the general court, asking for permission to put a question on the ballot, asking the citizens if they want to change their form of government. And there you go.
And I agree with you. I think the people, like they did in the recall, they came out, and they didn't come out in vast number. We had more in a recall in the middle of December on one issue than we did in all three of Coogan's elections for a vote total. So I think you're right. But also, like I said, especially in communities like this, I think that, maybe in Newton you don't need it because the gateway cities are always tight with cash, and you get politicians like what happens in Fall River. If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. How did our retirement system go in a tank? Easy. From 02 to 12, they put in $89 million less than New Bedford. Eddie Lambert skimmed the retirement system and drove it from above middle to the second worst in the state, or then to the third worst. We're beginning to make a comeback now, but they need to rob Peter to pay Paul all the time. Newton, on the other hand, is a very wealthy community. I don't believe they need it, because if you look at their budget and the way they run their city, they're a well-to-do city. What they do is they have a budget. You can look at the Newton budget. Every single department puts in their budget. They also tell you exactly what they're going to do for the entire year, all their projects. And they also have a synopsis of everything they promised to do last year, what they did, and if they didn't do it, why they didn't get it done. And in Newton, if you go to the city council like they do in Fall River all the time, 2 weeks after you approve the budget, and you ask for money for stuff that should have been in the budget because you didn't want to put it in, and you get it, you don't get it in Newton. You know what they tell you to do? Wait till next year, because you were told anything that was foreseeable had to be funded. And the only time you're going to get extra money is if it's something that was unexpected and unforeseeable, and it's an emergency. Otherwise, the budget stands.
So Dan made a comment with that we have 3 years for the next election to get someone to run that is committed to changing to the city manager type, to a Plan E form of government. Actually, not
Plan E.
true. The next election's only 2 years away, but that's beside the point. If either one of the people running for mayor right now, whether it be incumbent Paul Coogan or Boomer Amaral, if either one of them have an appetite to move the city in that direction and give the people a democratic process and the right to choose their form of government, the election is tomorrow. And that process could start this year. We don't have to wait for another election. If the person who gets elected has an appetite to give the people of Fall River the option.
And there's nothing that prevents us from having a special election.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what would happen. That's what would
Right.
happen. So the mayor needs to send an order to the city council. The city council needs to vote on that order through a home rule petition to send it to Boston, to the general court, to allow us to have that special election for the people to say, yes, we want to change the government, or no, we don't. And then, depending on the answer, you go from there.
And you know, the irony of the statement you just made, Michelle, is that Paul Coogan, if he got reelected, he's never going to get in again, because another 2 years of him, we're going to be in receivership anyway. And he knows that if we go through that process, by the time we're done and install that form of government, he's going to be gone anyway. So he could do that, because by the time if he gets another 2 years, we'll have nothing to lose, and the city will be in such chaos. I don't even know if anybody will run for mayor with the debt we're going to be in. I don't know. I don't know about the appetite, because the reality is, look, we did it once for a lot less when we recalled Will Flanagan. He had, the debt was minuscule compared to what this guy's done to this city. But I just don't see why people can't see that in these gateway cities. Well, I can't see. That was fundamentally, it's a rhetorical question. I know why, because the most corruption you see in this state is always in the poorest cities, just like all over the country. Go to Baltimore. Baltimore's been a total disaster for the last 75 years, run by the same corrupt politicians for 75 years, the same party, the same people. Nothing ever gets better. Detroit, you look at all these cities that have been run into the ground. The corruption is 100 times worse. You go to a place like Newton, high income, run well, bedroom community, apples and oranges. Cities like this are basically the breeding ground of political corruption. And the only way to me, from what I've seen historically, you end up with what happened in Fall River. That's what happened in Detroit. People stopped voting. You couldn't sell a house downtown Detroit for $1. So the only way you can get rid of this is not by expecting people to throw everybody out, because they never do. I'm a pragmatist. I'm not an optimist or a pessimist. You show me a glass of water, I don't look at it half full or half empty. I say there's a glass with water in it. That's a pragmatist, okay? So, but I've seen it. I learned from history. I'm a student of this stuff. I watched this happen all over the country. These cities like this don't fix themselves. Atlantic City, millions and millions and billions of dollars from gambling revenues. Where did it go? To the politicians. Atlantic City is a disaster. The only city I ever saw that cleaned up its act to a degree and cleaned up the corruption was Miami. Miami was a mecca for tourism for years, made hundreds of millions of dollars in tourism, and it was a war zone. They got a new mayor, cracked down on crime, That's the only time I've ever seen it turn around. But that's because the voters got finally sick of it after, plus they have a new influx of people that moved to Florida. And maybe that was the impetus. But cities like this, there's too much corruption. You just can't get around it, it seems, because 40,000, it still boggles my mind. 40,000 people didn't vote. How is that even possible?
I know it's absolutely, it's amazing. Yeah, I don't know.
And who suffers at that? It's the people who do the work, like you say. And
hey, I know how we can make them vote. If they don't vote, they don't get their food stamps.
Oh, I think that may be illegal. See,
if they don't vote, they don't get their benefits. It's that simple. Okay?
But,
they want all the goodies, but they don't want to do their civic duty. It's like the people who do everything possible to get out of jury duty. They fake illnesses, they fake deaths, they do everything under the sun just to get out of jury duty. But that's their civic duty. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I know people that refuse to register to vote because if they do, they'll get selected for jury duty.
Right? So tomorrow's going to be 54 degrees and full sunshine. No excuse.
There's no excuse saying it's raining.
No excuse not to go out and vote.
That's right. It takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes out of your day. Oh, but I had to go to the hardware store. Oh, I got caught up in this market. Oh, I had appointments. Guess what? The polls open at what? 7 a.m.?
7 o'clock till 8 o'clock tomorrow night.
Till 8 o'clock at night. Well, between 5 and 8, there's no doctor's office open. There's no lawyer's office open. The courts are closed. The markets are open, but it's still 5 minutes. And what really gets me, this gets me to no end. The people that live in the buildings or right next door to the buildings that have the polling places and they don't show up to vote.
Yeah. That's a good point as well. And
you've got organizations like the Flint Neighborhood Association, which has said, if you need a ride to the polls because they bastardized the polling in the Flint, they moved it up to St. Anthony of the Desert. Okay? People who are voting in those buildings, Cottrell or whatever, Baresi, when they were voting in those buildings, they would show up to vote. Now they moved it out of there. Why, I don't know. But they've done it.
Well, see that? You just gave me an excuse not to vote. I used to be able to walk to the polls, but
That's
now I have to go all the way to St. Anthony of the Desert. I'm only kidding. I vote all the time. But listen, Spindle City Straight Talk, all you guys making comments today, if you don't have one of these tomorrow, we're not going to post any of your stuff on Wednesday. And it's, but it's the people like Michelle that need people to turn out because these are, you got to remember that more than 50% of the people that show up right now, when we have a turnout like this, a lot more than 50, I'd say 55, 60% of them are there to vote, not for candidates that do the job, but to vote for a political ally. And that's the reality. Let's not kid ourselves, everybody. Let's not kid ourselves. How did Pat Casey get elected? Pat Casey was unfortunately one of the most mentally challenged city councilors we ever had. I know a bag of rocks that was sharper than her. But she got in. Why? Because she was involved in Stop Obnoxious Smells, a whole bunch of organizations, and she had a voter base that voted for her because she was friendly with them. That most people vote because they know somebody or 1 in 9, and this is the problem. You need people to show up at the polls to vote for people who do the job, like Michelle and like Colin, who are asking questions and trying to represent the people. Oh, there's Fatima. Oh, Sue Cody. Wow, Sue. Wow, we haven't seen you in a while.
I'm missing it.
Fatima's comment?
Fatima's there. You know, and I think it's worth noting that for people, I guess it's all going to depend on how you define diversity, because there's different types of diversity. I think it's also worth noting that I'm the only city councilor in the South End.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and that's another thing for CJ's thing about ward councilors. If you look at this city, there has always been a majority or supermajority of the city council that's either from the north end or bordering the north end. And that is not representative of the city.
And it's not representative of the people.
You're right. Well, but then again, whose fault is it? It's the people. We all know
That's
that.
right.
Listen, the South End's the most heavily populated area in the city. They should dominate it. But you know what happens? They've always seen statistically the higher educational level, the more propensity to vote. The North End has our more affluent people with they're better educated, and they all go to vote for their friends. Like my two friends here, in case you haven't been introduced to Michelle, this is Brad, and this is Paul. So I keep him here with me on every show, so I've been reminded of what ineptness is. But no, this is the problem. This is why people are going to go vote. People have got, and they don't. That's the key. The key is I don't know what it takes. We like every decade or so, they get pissed off enough to finally show up. And the last time we had a real major outpouring of pissed off people was 95. That's a long time ago. That's when outside councilors.
There's your colleague, Michelle.
Yes, Sean Kadim. Vote Michelle Dion. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, there you go. But we got to vote for people who are paying attention to the book. They're asking the questions. They've got to do what they've got to do. But they've got to be, in my opinion, they've got to. It's about time to sue the city. You can't sit there and let them tell you. We're not going to tell you because you're representing the voters there. I mean, you know how pissed off I am that I don't have any idea how many lawsuits that we have in the hopper and how much I'm going to be on the hook as a taxpayer for.
Well, I can tell you, there's some councilors who aren't very happy with that as well.
Oh, I know.
But again, here we go. If 5 people don't want to change it, it doesn't change.
That's right. No, you're right.
And it's the same 5 people all the time. All the time.
Sue Cody made a good point here. Let me put it back up. I don't know if it has it or hasn't. I would, well, I mean,
based on the piss poor turnout in the preliminary, it hasn't improved it.
Well, I'll tell you what. The problem is, I'm sure it didn't. I'm sure it actually diminished the vote total. I think that, but the problem is, if they kept them in the same place, it would just go from abysmal to pathetic. What we need is them to get fired up. They were fired up in the presidential election. We had enough people to support Trump to carry the city. When's the last time? What did we get? 40-some thousand people out in that election?
I don't remember.
When's the last time you ever heard that number in the city of Fall River?
Right.
That's because they weren't there to vote. And the irony is, it's more important to elect councilors.
Let's go back to
let's directly affect your life.
So let's go back to changing the polling places. So when that was presented to the city council, I, as one more time as one councilor, didn't agree with all the changes. And I asked at that time, so is this going to be tracked? And will we know if these changes were effective or not effective? So obviously, as you see, we never got the answers, but it's not for lack of trying. I didn't think they should be taking it out of the high rises. So now you're going to have all these elderly people and some compromised people who don't get around well or don't have cars. So now instead of just going downstairs and voting, now they have to go to Good Shepherd Church instead. Or I'll tell you, most of the complaints I've gotten have all have to do with the voting at BCC.
Yeah.
But you're right. No, we have not gotten numbers. We have not heard one way or another. Is it better? Is it worse? Obviously, there's fewer people voting. Does that have a part in it? Maybe it does. And if it does,
the
that's a
city
shame.
council, the city council gave Ryan Lyons a $15,000 or $10,000 pay raise.
I didn't.
I know you didn't. As a matter of fact, I think you made the motion to cut the pay raise in half, cut the pay raise down.
I did. I did.
All I know is that Liz Camara comes to our meetings, the retirees meetings, virtually every month. She's very, very dedicated. She did a great job, and she's no relation. I'm not saying that because her name is Camara. The only Camaras I have that are my relative is my son. He's the only Camara. My daughter has Camara / Arugio. But because I was the only person in my family, an extended family, that carried the Camara name. So she's not related. She ran this when we had very good turnouts.
Mm-hmm.
Fall River. And she had exactly one full-timer and one part-timer in that office.
That's right.
Now Ryan Lyons has got 7. And he's getting a pay raise. He should have a pay cut. He should have got 1/7 of what Liz Camara got. The way I do my math is if you got 7 times the workforce, doing your job, you should get less money, not more money. I don't know. Because it's crazy. My cousin is one of those people that's affected by that BCC thing.
So I've already gotten 2 text messages. The first one, I agree. I hate voting at BCC. The second one, BCC will make people not vote. The walk is ridiculous. When it's cold and dark out, people won't go.
That's right. That's right.
So
you're right, Michelle. That thing's in the middle of the campus. So you got to park, regardless of what parking lot you park in, you've got to walk into the middle of the campus. And if you're elderly, like you said, if you have a physical disability and stuff, it is. I know who came up with that. It's people who want to suppress the vote because the lower the turnout, the more it favors incumbents.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's another one, Michelle Soares. My polling moved from Tansy School to BCC. I find less people going there to vote. They should have left all the polling places alone, especially the high rises. Shameful. I do. I believe it has a direct correlation to losing voter participation.
Yeah.
The more difficult you make something for someone, the less likely they are to do it.
And BCC, I think, is the most egregious example of that, because that thing is like in the middle of nowhere, and if you don't know the campus in the dark, it could be a little.
Parking's not easy because school is in session.
Yeah,
both day and evening classes.
So, here's another one. BCC is terrible.
Yeah.
Well,
and I can tell you, these are people who vote.
Yeah, good.
On YouTube, we got a couple of statements from SEC 1980, vote Michelle Dion, and then from No Jab FJB, Michelle for council president.
Oh, that's a little presumptuous.
I'm sure you want that.
Yeah, well, but no, but it's crazy. BCC, because I walk the dog up at BCC at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. I'm familiar with the campus. Obviously, CJ and I and I have to, before I say that, we've been thrown out of better places than that when we got thrown out of that studio. So we've been thrown out of better places for cause. But yeah, they have to explain to me how that made any sense at all. Listen, St. Anthony the Desert, I vote there now. I used to just walk up the street to the fire station and vote. Now I got to get in my car. I got to drive. I could walk if the weather was good to St. Anthony the Desert. And there's parking there close enough to where you can park and walk a very short distance.
Mm-hmm.
But that BCC is just, it is absurd. And my cousin, who used to live right alongside of the polling place now, it has now been moved to BCC, and she hates it. There's another one. She probably didn't text you today, but she's told me she doesn't. She has to go vote early in the day. She's afraid to go up there at night. It's dark. She doesn't know the campus. She didn't go to BCC. She went to, and this is crazy. And their feet have to be held to the fire. We know one thing. That you guys, I got case law, and I've talked about it a lot. I've got case law where you guys, you're entitled to what you asked for. I've got case law from Cornell Law School that says that I've got all kinds, in public sector law especially, that says you have a right to numbers. You have to examine the numbers. When you request a number, you have to look at them, and one of the cases said with a critical eye, and you have to look at them in depth. And if they don't give them to you, you've got a great lawsuit. And when you decide to sue the city for once for not answering your questions about anything funded, it's like North Korea. I'm surprised Ryan didn't put one in North Korea. All right, you live in the South End, you got to vote in North Korea.
That's it. Well, Michelle, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was very informative. And yes, the city council has a say in where the polling places go because they can vote no. I answered that question for you.
Well, vote for Michelle Dion and anybody else who has earned your vote. If they haven't earned your vote,
and I truly appreciate anybody who supports me and votes for me. And my name will be number 8 on the ballot this year.
The first time.
First time I broke the teens.
There you go. Well, I want to
maybe that's a good omen.
That's it. I want to thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having you, Michelle. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And once again, people, remember to get out and vote tomorrow. It's an important election. Ciao.
Show my shirt again.
Ciao.
There you go.
Ciao. There we go. Good luck, Michelle.
All right.
Ciao, everybody. Remember,
Thanks,
stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a
Thank
great
you,
evening.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.